The millionaire's son humiliated the waitress, but a minute later he fell to his knees because of. The champagne glasses clinked at the Blue Oak restaurant, but Ethan Thompson's laughter cut through the elegant ambience like a knife. "Come on, smile for real this time," he sneered at Sarah Mitchell, the waitress whose hands trembled slightly as she held her tray. With a job like this, who wouldn't be miserable? His friend's cruel laughter echoed as Sarah stood frozen, dignity crumbling under their wealthy contempt. Then William Thompson's commanding voice silenced the room. "That's enough, son." No one expected the city's most powerful businessman to be dining there that night. No one predicted how his intervention would shatter his son's privileged world. And certainly no one knew this single moment would change 3 lives forever, starting with a father's most difficult decision and ending with a twist that would leave everyone speechless. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. The pristine silence of William Thompson's study was broken only by the soft crackle of vinyl Claire de Lune, Elizabeth's favorite. His fingers traced the worn leather of her favorite armchair, still positioned exactly where she'd left it 7 years ago. The preserved room was his sanctuary, a time capsule of their last happy moments before cancer stole her away. Dad, 13-year-old Ethan's voice had cracked that day, standing in the doorway of the hospital room. Is Mum really? The question had hung unfinished, too painful to complete. William had simply held his son, their shared grief bridging the gap between father and child. Back then, Ethan had been a sensitive boy who played piano just like his mother, who helped elderly Mrs. Peterson with her groceries, who had his mother's kind eyes. But grief changes people. For William, it meant sleepless nights running a growing empire while learning to be both mother and father. For Ethan, it meant a slow hardening of the heart, a gradual transformation that William watched helplessly. The piano gathered dust. The kind eyes grew cold. "You need to let him feel it," William's sister had advised. Boys process grief differently, but William knew it wasn't just grief, it was the void they both felt, the absence of Elizabeth's gentle guidance. He buried himself in work, building Thompson Enterprises into a corporate giant, while Ethan buried himself in privilege, using wealth as a shield against pain. The headaches started 3 months ago. William had dismissed them at first: stress, lack of sleep, the usual excuses. But when the MRI results came back, the doctor's face said everything. 6 months, maybe a year with treatment. The words echoed in his mind as he sat in his wife's preserved room. He hadn't told anyone, not even his executive board, especially not Ethan. William, his assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Catherine Pierce is here to see you." Catherine Pierce, daughter of his biggest competitor and Ethan's ex-girlfriend. The relationship had ended messily 6 months ago, another symptom of Ethan's spiral into arrogance. William straightened his tie, tucking away the old photograph of Elizabeth he'd been holding. "Send her in, Martha." Catherine entered with practiced grace, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood floor. "Mr. Thompson, thank you for seeing me." Her smile was perfectly crafted, but her eyes held something calculating. "I wanted to discuss the merger proposal personally." "Your father's proposal? You mean?" William gestured for her to sit. "I wasn't aware you were involved in Pierce Industries operations." "Things change," she replied smoothly. "Speaking of change, I heard about what happened at the Blue Oak. Poor Ethan must be devastated, being cut off like that." William's expression remained neutral. "My son's financial situation is a private family matter." Of course, Catherine leaned forward slightly. "But surely you see how this affects both our companies. The merger would benefit everyone. Ethan could return to his rightful place, and perhaps," she paused deliberately, "we could rekindle certain personal connections as well." The implied manipulation was clear. William felt a familiar throb behind his eyes, another headache coming on. "MS Pierce, let me be direct. Neither my company nor my son are bargaining chips. The merger isn't happening." Catherine's mask slipped slightly. "You're making a mistake. That waitress you hired, Sarah Mitchell, is it? She's hardly qualified for corporate work. It's causing quite a stir." "Miss Mitchell's qualifications are not your concern," William stood, signaling the end of the meeting. "And neither are my reasons for hiring her." After Catherine left, William found himself looking at another file on his desk, Sarah Mitchell's background check. Single-handedly supporting a disabled brother and partially paralyzed mother, working 2 jobs while pursuing online nursing classes. Hospital bills piling up after her father's fatal car accident. The same accident that had happened right outside Pierce Industries' construction site, where safety regulations had been suspiciously lax. The settlement had barely covered the funeral costs. William closed the file, his decision about Sarah's hiring reaffirmed. He'd recognized something in her that night at the restaurant, not just resilience, but the same quiet strength Elizabeth had possessed. The strength their son had lost. His phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "Dad, can we talk? Please." William stared at the message, remembering the little boy who used to run into this office with scraped knees and proud artwork. Now his son was 25, delivering packages across the city, finally facing the real world without his wealth as a buffer. "Not yet, son," he whispered to himself, pocketing the phone. The headache was getting worse, but he had work to do. The foundation paperwork needed finalizing his hidden project, ensuring both Sarah's family and others like them would be cared for after he was gone. The vinyl record finished playing, Claire de Lune's final notes fading into silence. William closed his eyes, feeling Elizabeth's presence in the room. "Am I doing the right thing?" he asked the empty chair. As always, only silence answered, but somehow he knew this was the path forward, even if none of them could see where it led yet. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. "Mr. Thompson," it was Sarah, holding a stack of reports. "I finished the analysis you requested." "Come in, Sarah," he gestured, noting how she carried herself with quiet confidence, despite the whispers he knew she faced in the office. "And please call me William." She smiled, reminding him so much of Elizabeth it almost hurt. "These numbers show something interesting about Pierce Industries' safety records," she began. William listened, watching the sun set outside his window. Soon he would have to tell everyone about his diagnosis. But not yet. First, he needed to be sure his plan would work, that both Sarah and Ethan would be ready for what was to come. The chessboard was set. Now it was time to let the pieces move themselves. Ethan Thompson stared at his frozen bank accounts, the zeros where millions had been just hours before. His father's words still rang in his ears: "Until you understand the value of hard work and respect, you'll have to make your own way." The leather seats of his Porsche suddenly felt suffocating. Soon, he wouldn't even be able to afford the gas for it. The delivery company's office was a stark contrast to the gleaming corporate towers he was used to. Mike, the dispatch manager, barely glanced up from his clipboard. "Experience?" "I drove in college," Ethan offered weakly. Mike snorted. "Welcome to the real world, kid. Start tomorrow, 6 a.m. sharp." Across town, Sarah Mitchell was having her own moment of disbelief. The elevator in Thompson Enterprises felt like it was carrying her into another world. Her worn blazer, bought from a thrift store, stood out among the designer suits. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind, "Are you sure about this, honey? People like us don't usually." But William Thompson had been insistent. "Your perspective is exactly what this company needs," he'd said. Now, standing in the pristine corporate office, Sarah wondered if he'd been right. Well, a voice dripped with false sweetness. "If it isn't our new diversity hire," Catherine Pierce stood blocking Sarah's path, perfectly manicured hands crossed over her Chanel suit. "How's the view from the other side of the serving tray?" Sarah straightened her spine. Better than the view of someone else's success making them bitter, Ms. Pierce. Catherine's eyes narrowed. "Watch yourself, waitress. Some of us actually earned our place here." The exchange was interrupted by William's arrival. "Sarah, perfect timing. I need your insight on the Anderson account." As they walked away, Catherine's glare burned into Sarah's back. But Sarah couldn't focus on office politics, not when her phone kept buzzing with texts from home. "Tommy won't take his meds," her aunt wrote. "Your mom's having another bad day." Meanwhile, Ethan's first delivery route was a disaster. He got lost 3 times, dropped a package, and earned nothing but eye rolls from his co-workers. By afternoon, his designer shoes were scuffed, and his back ached from lifting boxes. His last stop was Anderson's Grocery, a small family store in a neighborhood he'd never visited before. Mrs. Anderson, a woman in her 70s, watched him struggle with a heavy box of supplies. First day, she asked, kindness in her weathered face. Ethan nodded, too exhausted for his usual arrogance. "Reminds me of my William," she said, surprising him. "Back when he was just starting out, making deliveries just like you. Used to bring his little girl Elizabeth with him sometimes. Such a sweet child." Ethan froze. "Elizabeth? My mother." Mrs. Anderson's eyes widened with recognition. "Your William's boy?" "Oh, dear heart, I should have known you have eyes." Something cracked in Ethan's carefully constructed wall. "You knew my mother." "She used to play piano at the church down the street." Mrs. Anderson smiled sadly. "Even after your father's business took off, she'd still come by, help me stock shelves, play for the Sunday service. Such a kind soul." Ethan sank into a chair, memories flooding back his mother's hands guiding his on piano keys, her laugh when he hit wrong notes, her gentle corrections when he was unkind to others. "What happened to you, sweet boy?" Mrs. Anderson asked softly. "Your mother raised you to be better than what I saw at that restaurant." Shame burned hot in Ethan's chest. I lost my way after she died." "We all lose our way sometimes." She patted his hand. "The question is, what are you going to do about it now?" Back at Thompson Enterprises, Sarah was discovering her own challenges. The quarterly reports revealed disturbing patterns in Pierce Industries' business practices, patterns that reminded her too much of the accident that had torn her family apart. These safety violations, she showed William, they're systematic. And the settlements, they're buying silence. William nodded gravely, just like with your father's accident. Sarah's head snapped up. "You know about that." "I make it my business to know," William replied, sliding a folder across his desk. "Perhaps you'd be interested in heading up our new corporate responsibility initiative." Before Sarah could respond, Catherine burst in. "William, the board is concerned about your recent decisions. Promoting an inexperienced waitress? Cutting off your own son? Pierce Industries' merger offer won't wait forever." "Neither will justice, Ms. Pierce." William's voice was steel. "Sarah, please share your findings about those safety records." Catherine's face paled as Sarah presented the evidence. When she fled the office, William turned to Sarah with a tired smile. "Well done. But be careful, she won't take this lightly." That evening, as Sarah visited her mother in the rehabilitation center, she was surprised to find the bills had been mysteriously paid. The nurse just smiled. "Let's just say you have a guardian angel, dear." And in a small grocery store across town, Ethan sat at an old piano in the back room, his fingers remembering notes his heart had forgotten, while Mrs. Anderson listened and remembered a young woman who would have been proud to see her son finding his way back to himself. The sun set on a day of revelations, each character unknowingly moving closer to the truth that would soon change everything. William watched from his office window, another headache building, knowing his time to set things right was running short. In the soft glow of evening light, William Thompson stood in Elizabeth's preserved room, his fingers trailing over the piano keys she once played. The room remained exactly as she'd left it, her reading glasses still perched on her favorite novel, her gardening magazine open to an article about roses she'd never get to plant. The vinyl record player softly played Moon River, their wedding song. "I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, Lizzie," he whispered to the empty room. His head throbbed, a constant reminder of the ticking clock. The latest scan results lay hidden in his desk drawer downstairs. The tumor was growing faster than expected. A gentle knock interrupted his reverie. Mr. Thompson Martha, his assistant of 20 years, stood in the doorway. "Your son is here." William quickly wiped his eyes. "Tell him I'm in a meeting." Sir Martha hesitated. "He's been waiting for 3 hours. And downstairs, Ethan sat in the lobby, still in his delivery uniform, clutching a small paper bag. Inside was a piece of Mrs. Anderson's apple pie, his mother's recipe, she'd said. He'd been delivering there daily now, learning bits and pieces about the mother he'd tried so hard to forget. Meanwhile, Sarah was working late, poring over old company records. Something about the Pierce Industries pattern bothered her. The accidents, the settlements, they all started exactly 7 years ago, right after Elizabeth Thompson's death. A notification popped up on her computer, an email from an anonymous source. Inside were hospital records, specifically Elizabeth Thompson's final days. But Sarah's heart stopped as she read the oncologist notes: patient's rapid decline, potentially linked to experimental treatment administered at Pierce Medical Research Facility. Finding something interesting. Sarah jumped. Catherine Pierce stood in the doorway, her smile razor sharp. "You really should be more careful about staying late alone." "What do you want, Catherine?" "Just offering friendly advice. Drop the investigation. Some doors are better left closed." Catherine's voice hardened. "Or should we discuss your brother's art therapy sessions? Would be a shame if his funding suddenly disappeared." Sarah's hands trembled, but her voice remained steady. "Are you threatening a disabled child?" "I'm protecting my family's interests, just like you should protect yours." After Catherine left, Sarah sat in the darkened office, tears threatening to fall. Her phone buzzed a text from her brother Tommy. "Look what I drew today." The attached photo showed a surprisingly detailed sketch of their father, drawn from an old photograph. In the preserved room, William finally emerged to find Ethan gone, the pie left on his desk with a note: "Mrs. Anderson says you used to love this. Remember when Mom would make it every Sunday?" William's hand shook as he picked up the note. The headache intensified, and suddenly the room spun. He grabbed his desk for support, knocking over a stack of files. As papers scattered across the floor, one caught his eye: a letter from Elizabeth he'd never seen before, dated just before her death. "My dearest William, if you're reading this, Robert Pierce's miracle treatment didn't work. Don't blame yourself, it was my choice. But please protect our boy. Don't let him become hard like them. He has my heart, even if he's forgotten it." William sank into his chair, the truth he'd buried for 7 years surfacing like a drowning man gasping for air. Robert Pierce had promised a cure, an experimental treatment that might save Elizabeth. But it had only accelerated her decline, and in his grief, William had signed the settlements, buried the truth, focused on building his empire instead of healing his son. The same son who now spent his evenings playing piano at Mrs. Anderson's store, rediscovering pieces of his mother's legacy. Sarah was leaving the office when she heard music coming from the company's empty reception area. Tommy sat at the grand piano, his fingers dancing across the keys while an elderly janitor watched in amazement. "He just asked if he could try it," the janitor explained. "I've never seen anything like it." Sarah watched in wonder. Tommy had never shown any interest in music before. "Where did you learn that?" "The nice man taught me." Tommy smiled. "The one who visits Mom at therapy. He plays just like this." Sarah frowned. "What nice man?" Before Tommy could answer, William appeared, steadying himself against the wall. Sarah, a moment, please." In his office, William handed her a folder. "Your father's accident wasn't an accident. Pierce Industries has been testing experimental treatments without proper protocols for years. Elizabeth was one of their first victims." Sarah's world tilted. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because," William's voice cracked, "I need your help to make it right. But first, there's something you should know about my condition." Before he could continue, Ethan burst in, his face pale. "Dad, I just saw your MRE results in Martha's office. Why didn't you tell me?" The three stood in frozen tableau, secrets threatening to spill over like a dam about to break. Outside, Tommy continued playing the piano, the melody of Moon River floating through the empty halls like a ghost of memories past. William looked between them, his son, finally showing the concern he'd buried for 7 years, and Sarah, whose father's death was intertwined with his wife's in ways he was only now understanding. The headache pounded, a reminder that his time for fixing things was running out. "Sit down," he said finally. "It's time you both knew the truth. All of it." But before he could begin, Catherine Pierce's voice cut through the tension. "Yes, William. Let's tell them everything." She stood in the doorway, holding a familiar leather-bound journal, Elizabeth's private medical diary, "including what really happened the night your wife died." Catherine's heels clicked against the hardwood floor as she entered, Elizabeth's journal held like a weapon. "Shall I read it aloud, William? The part where my father promised to save her? Or perhaps the part where you chose to hide the truth, even from your own son?" William's grip tightened on his desk, another wave of dizziness threatening to overwhelm him. "That journal belongs to my late wife." "Found it in the Pierce Industries archives," Catherine smiled coldly, "along with some very interesting documents about Sarah's father's accident. Quite the coincidence, both tragedies involving experimental treatments." Ethan looked between his father and Catherine, confusion etched on his face. "What is she talking about, Dad?" "Your mother was dying." William's voice cracked. "Pierce offered an experimental treatment. I let hope blind me. When it went wrong, I signed the settlements, buried the evidence." "You knew," Ethan's voice rose, "you knew Pierce Industries was responsible for Mom's death, and you still let me date Catherine, still considered their merger." "I was protecting you," William started, but the room suddenly tilted. He grabbed his chair, his vision blurring. "Dad," Ethan's anger transformed to concern. "I'm fine," William waved him off, but Sarah was already at his side, her nursing training kicking in. "Your pulse is racing," she said quietly. "When was your last MRI?" "Last week," Catherine interrupted. "Stage 4 glioblastoma. Isn't that right, William? Just like Elizabeth's cancer, spreading faster after the experimental treatment. History repeating itself." "Get out," Ethan's voice was ice. "Oh, I'm not done." Catherine pulled out her phone. "Sarah's big presentation tomorrow?" All her files just mysteriously disappeared. Funny how technology can be so unreliable. Sarah's face paled. The Corporate Responsibility Initiative, all her research about Pierce Industries violations gone. "And that's not all," Catherine continued. "Tommy's art therapy program, funded by Pierce Industries. One word from me and it's gone. Along with your mother's rehabilitation care." "You vindictive little," Ethan started forward, but Sarah caught his arm. "The backup drive," she said suddenly, "the one in your mother's room. You always said she kept everything important there." William nodded slowly. Elizabeth never trusted computers. She kept paper records of everything. "Too bad you can't reach it," Catherine smirked. "The board meeting's in 12 hours. Without evidence, it's your word against my father's. And in your condition, William, who do you think they'll believe?" As if to emphasize her point, William swayed again. This time, both Ethan and Sarah caught him. "Hospital. Now Sarah's tone left no room for argument. No, William straightened with effort. We need those records. Elizabeth's journal, her medical files, everything that proves what Pierce Industries did. I'll get them, Ethan said firmly. You'll have to get through building security first, Catherine taunted. Your access card was deactivated weeks ago, remember? Sarah's phone buzzed a text from Tommy. The nice man showed me a secret way into the big building. Through the old service tunnel. He says it's like a treasure hunt. Sarah's eyes widened. Tommy's been getting into the building somehow. The old maintenance tunnels from when this was the original Pierce Industries headquarters. Impossible, Catherine scoffed. Those were sealed years ago. Not all of them, William managed a small smile. Elizabeth used to use them to bring me lunch when I worked late. Said every building needed secret passages, like in her mystery novels. I'll take Tommy's route, Sarah decided. Ethan, get your father to the hospital. Catherine can't stop the presentation if she can't find me. How touching, Catherine moved to block the door. But you're not going anywhere. What happened next occurred so fast it seemed choreographed. Tommy, who had been quietly listening at the door, burst in playing a deafening tune on his harmonica. The sudden noise made Catherine jump. Sarah slipped past her, while Ethan stepped between them, his delivery uniform still dusty from the day's work. You know, Catherine, he said quietly, Mum always said true strength isn't about having power over others. It's about protecting those who need it. Your mother died weak and delusional, Catherine spat. The words hung in the air like poison. Then William Thompson, who had been leaning heavily on his desk, straightened to his full height. Despite the pain evident in his eyes, his voice was steady. Martha, he pressed the intercom. Please escort MS. Pierce out. And call security, it seems we have evidence of corporate espionage. You can't prove anything, Catherine backed toward the door. No, William held up his phone. We've been recording this entire conversation, including your admission about the stolen files and threats against Sarah's family. Color drained from Catherine's face as security arrived. As they led her out, she turned back. This isn't over. The board meeting will proceed as scheduled, William finished, with some unexpected additions to the agenda. After she was gone, William collapsed into his chair, his facade crumbling. Sarah, the tunnel's entrance is behind the old boiler room. Hurry. Dad, you need a doctor, Ethan insisted. What I need is to make this right. William grabbed his son's hand. Everything I did, hiding the truth, pushing you away, I thought I was protecting you. I was wrong. We'll talk about it later, Ethan said firmly. At the hospital. As Sarah slipped away to find Tommy and the tunnel entrance, she heard William's quiet words to his son, you play piano again. At Mrs. Anderson's, just like your mother used to. Yeah, Ethan's voice cracked. Yeah, I do. Sarah ran down the dark corridor, Tommy's hand in hers, their footsteps echoing against old brick walls. Somewhere above them, Catherine was undoubtedly rallying her forces, and in a hospital room across town, a father and son would begin to rebuild what grief and secrets had torn apart. The clock was ticking in more ways than one. But for now, they were all finally moving in the same direction, toward truth, toward healing, toward something that felt like hope. Through the sterile hospital corridors, Ethan paced relentlessly, his delivery uniform still dusty, his mother's journal clutched tightly in his hands. The doctor's words echoed in his mind that tumor's growth is aggressive. Without immediate treatment, we're looking at 3 to 6 months. No, he muttered, running his hands through his hair. No, no, no. Sarah's voice was soft but firm. She'd arrived moments ago, clutching a box of files found in the tunnels, her clothes smudged with decades-old dust. Sit down, please. How can I sit? His voice cracked. He knew for months and said nothing. Just like with Mum, always keeping secrets, always thinking he has to handle everything alone. He was protecting you. Protecting me, Ethan laughed bitterly. By pushing me away, by letting me become someone my mother would have been ashamed of. Sarah stepped closer, her hand reaching for his arm. Your father is still here. You still have time to make it right. The touch seemed to break something in him. Ethan slumped against the wall, sliding down until he sat on the cold hospital floor. I don't know how, he whispered. I don't know how to be the son he needs, the son she raised me to be. Sarah sat beside him, her shoulder touching his. Then start with being the person you want to be. Inside the hospital room, William Thompson lay surrounded by beeping machines, looking smaller somehow against the white sheets. The box of files sat open on his bedside table, evidence of Pierce Industries' years of unethical practices, of covered-up deaths and silenced families. The board meeting, he mumbled, trying to sit up. Is being handled, Sarah assured him. Your legal team has everything they need. Ethan watched from the doorway as Sarah adjusted his father's pillows with practiced ease. How many nights had she done this for her own mother, he wondered. Tell me about Tommy's art, William said suddenly, his eyes clearing for a moment. The one he drew of his father. Sarah smiled, pulling out her phone to show him. He's never drawn like this before, he says. He says the nice man who plays piano taught him. William's eyes met Ethan's. You've been visiting them? Every Tuesday and Thursday, Ethan admitted, moving into the room. After my deliveries, Tommy. He reminds me of myself, before he swallowed hard, before Mum died. Elizabeth would be proud, William whispered, of both of you. The moment was interrupted by a nurse bringing in a wheelchair. Time for your testing, Mr. Thompson. As they wheeled William away, Ethan turned to Sarah. Come with me. There's somewhere we need to go. The nursing home was quiet in the late afternoon light. Elderly residents sat in the common room, some watching TV, others playing cards. Mrs. Anderson was there, visiting her sister. Ethan, she called out warmly. And this must be Sarah. William's told us so much about you. He has. Sarah looked surprised. Oh yes, dear. He visits every Sunday, plays chess with Mr. Jenkins here, brings fresh flowers for everyone. Mrs. Anderson smiled. Started right after your father's accident. Said something about making amends, though I never quite understood what he meant. Ethan's hands found the piano keys, and soft music filled the room. Residents stopped their activities, turning to listen as Moon River floated through the air. That was your mother's favorite, Mrs. Anderson told Sarah. Elizabeth used to play it here too. Sarah watched as the elderly residents swayed to the music, some wiping tears from their eyes. One old woman approached her, patting her hand. You look just like your father, dear. He used to fix our cars for free, you know. Such a kind man. The pieces were falling into place. William's secret visits, the paid medical bills, the mysterious piano teacher for Tommy. All this time, he'd been trying to weave their broken families back together, even as his own time was running out. He's been preparing for this, Sarah realized, making sure everyone would be taken care of. Ethan's music faltered. Why didn't he just tell us? Some things, Mrs. Anderson said gently, are better shown than told. As the sun set, casting long shadows through the nursing home windows, Ethan continued to play. Sarah sat beside him on the bench, her shoulder against his, while the elderly residents shared stories about Elizabeth Thompson's kindness, about Sarah's father's generosity, about William's quiet visits. I've been so angry, Ethan whispered between songs. At him, at myself, at the world. I forgot how to just feel. Sarah's hand found his on the keys. It's not too late. His phone buzzed a message from the hospital. William was out of testing, asking for them both. As they stood to leave, Mrs. Anderson pressed a piece of paper into Sarah's hands. It was one of Tommy's drawings, William sitting at the nursing home piano, teaching a small boy how to play. "He comes every week," Mrs. Anderson explained. "Says music helps Tommy focus better than words." Outside, the evening air was cool against their faces. Ethan stared at the drawing, his vision blurring. "All this time I thought he gave up on me, but he was just waiting for me to find my way back." Sarah squeezed his hand. "Then, let's not keep him waiting any longer." They drove back to the hospital in comfortable silence, the box of evidence secure in the back seat, Tommy's drawing tucked safely in Sarah's bag. Tomorrow would bring the board meeting, confrontations and hard truths. But tonight was for healing, for music, for the slow, steady work of rebuilding what time and grief had worn away. In the hospital room, William Thompson smiled as he heard his son's footsteps in the hallway. On the small table beside him, Elizabeth's journal lay open to an unfinished entry. "My dearest William, trust that love finds its way home. It always does." The boardroom of Thompson Enterprises hummed with tension as William Thompson, supported by both Ethan and Sarah, took his place at the head of the table. Despite his weakened condition, his voice carried the same authority it always had. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we address the Pierce Industries situation, I have an announcement." He gestured to a large screen behind him. "We're establishing the Elizabeth Thompson Foundation for Families in Crisis." Murmurs rippled through the room as Sarah began the presentation. The foundation would provide medical support, education funding, and rehabilitation services to families affected by corporate negligence. The first beneficiaries would be former Pierce Industries victims. Robert Pierce, sitting at the far end of the table, shifted uncomfortably. "This is highly irregular, William. Our merger discussion is terminated." William interrupted, nodding to Ethan, who distributed copies of Elizabeth's journal and the recovered files, along with any allusions about Pierce Industries' ethical practices. The evidence was damning. Years of experimental treatments, covered-up deaths, falsified safety reports. Elizabeth's detailed documentation of her declining health after Pierce's miracle cure, the pattern of settlements, including Sarah's father's accident. "You can't prove any of this," Robert Pierce sputtered, but his face had gone pale. "Actually," Sarah stepped forward, "we can. My father wasn't just a mechanic, Mr. Pierce. He kept records of every vehicle he serviced, including the faulty brake systems your company knowingly installed." The boardroom erupted in chaos. As security escorted a protesting Robert Pierce out, Catherine appeared in the doorway, her composure cracking. "Daddy," her voice sounded young, lost. "What's happening?" "The truth," Ethan said quietly. "Something both our families forgot about long ago." Later that afternoon, William sat in his old Mustang, the one he'd kept in storage since Elizabeth's death. Ethan was behind the wheel, carefully navigating them toward Mrs. Anderson's store. "Mom loved this car," Ethan said, running his hand along the dashboard. "She used to say it had character." "She made me promise never to sell it," William smiled. "Said our grandchildren would need to learn to drive in something with soul." The words hung between them, the future they might not have. But before the moment could turn bitter, Sarah's voice crackled through the phone on speaker. "Tommy's ready for his first piano lesson, Mr. Thompson." They pulled up to find Tommy waiting eagerly outside the store, his art supplies scattered around him. Mrs. Anderson stood in the doorway, wiping happy tears as she watched William, leaning on Ethan's arm, make his way to the old piano. "First rule of piano," William said, sitting at the bench with Tommy, "is that music comes from the heart, not just the fingers." As father taught son taught child, Sarah watched from behind the counter, sorting through foundation paperwork. The initial funding would come from William's personal fortune, with a matching contribution from Thompson Enterprises. It would ensure that families like hers would never have to choose between medical care and basic needs. "He's good with Tommy," Mrs. Anderson observed, joining her, just like Elizabeth was good with Ethan. "I wish I could have known her," Sarah said softly. "Oh, but you do, dear." Through them, Mrs. Anderson gestured to where William was guiding Tommy's small hands over the keys, while Ethan turned pages of sheet music. "Love leaves echoes." The lesson was interrupted by the arrival of Sarah's mother in her wheelchair, pushed by her nurse. It was her first outing since the accident, made possible by the Foundation's Advanced Rehabilitation Program. Mum Sarah rushed to embrace her. "How did you?" William insisted. Her mother smiled. Said Sunday family dinners were a Thompson tradition. Indeed, Mrs. Anderson's back room had been transformed. A long table was set with mismatched plates and simple flowers. The smell of Elizabeth's apple pie recipe wafted from the kitchen. "We can't fix the past," William said, helping Sarah's mother to the table. "But we can build a better future. Together." As they gathered around the table, the broken pieces of two families slowly becoming whole, Ethan stood to make a toast. His hands shook slightly as he raised his glass. "To legacy," he said, looking at his father. "Not the one we inherit, but the one we choose to create." William's eyes glistened as he added, "To Elizabeth, who taught us that family isn't about blood, it's about love." And to Mr. Mitchell, Sarah joined in, "Who showed us that integrity matters more than profit." To new beginnings, Mrs. Anderson concluded, as Tommy played a soft melody in the background. Later, as the sun set and the first stars appeared, William took out an old photo album. Inside were pictures of Elizabeth at the piano, of young Ethan learning to drive the Mustang, of Sunday dinners from years past. "I've been adding to it," he said, showing them recent photos, Tommy's artwork, Sarah's mother's first steps in therapy, Ethan playing at the nursing home. "The story isn't over. It's just changing." As if to emphasize his point, Tommy suddenly called out from the piano, "Look, I can play it." The first notes of Moon River filled the room, slightly hesitant but full of heart. William leaned back, watching his legacy unfold in ways he never expected but somehow always hoped for. The foundation would be his final gift to them all, not just financial security, but a purpose, a way to turn past pain into future hope. Outside, the old Mustang sat gleaming in the dying light, waiting for new adventures and fresh stories to tell. Inside, two broken families continued the slow, beautiful work of becoming whole. The autumn leaves danced around the Mustang as Ethan drove his father to another round of chemotherapy. William had insisted on taking the old car, saying something about how its engine's rumble made him feel stronger. But today his hand trembled as he reached for the door handle. "The latest scan results," William said quietly, pulling an envelope from his jacket. "I wanted you to see them first." But Ethan's heart clenched as he read the report. The tumor had grown despite treatment. 4 months had become 3, maybe less. His fingers tightened on the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. "We'll find another treatment," he insisted. "There must be something." Son William's voice was gentle but firm. "I've made my peace with this. Now I need you to do something much harder. Anything. But live. Not just exist, but really live. Like your mother taught you." At Thompson Enterprises, Sarah was presenting the Elizabeth Thompson Foundation's first quarterly report. The boardroom, once a battleground of corporate politics, now buzzed with genuine excitement. Dozens of families had already received assistance, and Tommy's art therapy program had expanded to 3 new hospitals. And this, Sarah clicked to the next slide, showing a familiar building, is our newest project, the Elizabeth Thompson Center for Arts and Healing. The old Pierce Industries research facility would be transformed into a community center, offering everything from music therapy to rehabilitation services. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. A place that once caused so much pain would now become a source of healing. Catherine Pierce sat in the back row, notably quieter than her former self. After her father's arrest, she'd surprised everyone by approaching the foundation, offering to testify about Pierce Industries' practices and donate her inheritance to the cause. "My father taught me that power means never having to say sorry," she'd told Sarah. "Your family taught me that true strength lies in making things right." The presentation was interrupted by Tommy bursting into the room, waving a piece of paper. "Look what I drew." The artwork showed William teaching a group of children at the nursing home piano, their faces lit with joy. The detail was extraordinary, every wrinkle on the residents' faces, every key on the piano rendered with loving precision. "It's perfect for the center's entrance hall," William said from the doorway, leaning on Ethan's arm. Despite his pallor, his eyes sparkled with pride. Later that afternoon, they gathered at Mrs. Anderson's store for what had become their regular Sunday tradition. The back room piano had been joined by an easel for Tommy, a comfortable recliner for Sarah's mother, now taking her first steps with a walker, and countless photos covering the walls. "I remember when this room was just storage," Mrs. Anderson mused, setting out Elizabeth's apple pie. "Now it's full of life again." William sat at the piano, his fingers moving slower than before but still finding the right notes. As Moon River filled the room, Ethan noticed his father's hands shaking. "Maybe you should rest," he suggested. "Some things are worth being tired for," William replied, then called Tommy over. "Come here, young man. Time for your next lesson." As Tommy settled beside him on the bench, William pulled out an old sheet of paper, Elizabeth's original handwritten arrangement of Moon River. "Your mother wrote this for me when we were young," he told Ethan. "Said some songs need to be passed down, like family recipes." Sarah watched from across the room, holding her mother's hand as she took tentative steps with her walker. "He's getting weaker," her mother observed quietly. "I know," Sarah whispered, "but he's also getting stronger in other ways." Indeed, William seemed to draw energy from teaching Tommy, from watching Sarah's mother's progress, from seeing Ethan return to the person he was always meant to be. Each moment of joy seemed to push back against the growing shadows. The afternoon light turned golden as William finally stood from the piano, swaying slightly. Ethan caught his arm, but William waved him off, asking everyone to gather around. "I have something to share," he announced, pulling out a thick envelope. "The final papers for the Elizabeth Thompson Center, but with one small change." He handed the documents to Sarah. Her eyes widened as she read. "The Sarah Mitchell Wing for Family Rehabilitation. Your father helped others without asking for recognition," William explained. "It's time his name was remembered too." Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks as she hugged him. Her mother dabbed at her eyes, while Tommy added another detail to his drawing assigned, with both names proudly displayed. "There's more," William continued, turning to Ethan. "The foundation needs a director who understands both sides of privilege and hardship, someone who's learned the value of compassion the hard way." Ethan stared at his father. "Dad, I'm not qualified." "You've been qualified since the day you started playing piano for Tommy," William countered. "Since you chose to learn humility through honest work. Since you remembered who your mother raised you to be." The room fell silent except for Tommy's pencil scratching against paper, adding one final detail to his drawing: Ethan and Sarah standing together by the center's entrance, their hands clasped. "Some legacies," William said softly, watching Tommy draw, "are built note by note, day by day, choice by choice. Your mother understood that. Now finally, so do I." As the sun set, casting long shadows through Mrs. Anderson's windows, the old Mustang's keys passed from father to son, Elizabeth's sheet music found new hands to bring it to life, and a family born from shared pain discovered that healing, like music, knows no boundaries. Catherine Pierce, watching from the doorway, finally understood what her father never had: that true power lies not in what you can take, but in what you choose to give back. And in the growing dusk, William Thompson watched his legacy unfold in ways far richer than mere corporate success, knowing that while his time might be short, the symphony he'd helped create would play on long after the final note faded away. Snow fell softly outside the hospital window as Christmas music drifted through the corridors. William Thompson's room had been transformed a small tree in the corner decorated with Tommy's artwork, garlands draped across medical equipment, and Elizabeth's old vinyl player softly spinning White Christmas. "The center opens next week," Ethan reported, adjusting his father's pillows. "We've already got a waiting list for the music therapy program." William smiled weakly. "And the nursing home performances?" Every Sunday, Sarah confirmed, hanging a new drawing from Tommy, this one showing the entire extended family around a Christmas tree. "Mrs. Anderson says the residents won't let us miss a single week." The door opened, and Sarah's mother wheeled herself in, now strong enough to manage independently. Behind her, Tommy carried a familiar wooden box. "Is that?" William's eyes brightened. "Mom's recipe box," Ethan confirmed. "Mrs. Anderson helped us make everything exactly the way she used to." The smell of Elizabeth's traditional Christmas cookies filled the room as they unpacked the care package. William closed his eyes, tears sliding down his cheeks. "Just like she's here with us," he whispered. The past months had been a blur of hospital visits and foundation work, but somehow they'd created a new normal. The Elizabeth Thompson Center was nearly complete, its walls already adorned with Tommy's art. Sarah's mother had progressed to part-time volunteer work there, counseling other accident survivors. Catherine, called Sarah, mentioned helping William sit up. "The Pierce Industries settlement is final. All victims' families will receive full compensation." "And Robert Pierce?" William asked. "Pleaded guilty. He'll serve time." Ethan's voice held no satisfaction, only quiet acceptance. Catherine had surprised them all by becoming one of the Foundation's most dedicated volunteers, working particularly with children who'd lost parents to corporate negligence. Her own healing journey had become part of the center's story. "I have something for everyone," William said suddenly, pointing to a drawer. Inside were carefully wrapped packages, each with a handwritten note. "Dad, Christmas isn't until next week," Ethan protested. "Humor an old man," William smiled. For Tommy, there was Elizabeth's book of sheet music, annotated with her personal notes. For Sarah's mother, a leather-bound photo album documenting her recovery journey. Sarah received Elizabeth's nursing school pin, while Ethan found the Mustang's original purchase receipt along with a faded photo of his parents bringing him home from the hospital in it. "One more thing," William pulled out an envelope. "The wedding venue is booked." Ethan and Sarah exchanged startled looks. They hadn't even announced their engagement yet. William chuckled weakly. "Please, I've seen how you look at each other. The nursing home chapel is reserved for spring. Elizabeth and I were married there, you know." Later that evening, as snow continued to fall, the nursing home residents gathered for their weekly concert. William had insisted on attending, despite his doctor's protests. Ethan played the piano while Tommy turned pages, and Sarah led the residents in Christmas carols. Mrs. Anderson brought out Elizabeth's apple pie, served on the mismatched plates that had become a Sunday tradition. As William watched his expanded family blood and chosen sharing music and memories, his heart felt full. "You did good," Lizzie whispered to the empty chair beside him. "Our boy found his way home." The night concluded with Ethan and Tommy performing Moon River as a duet, their fingers dancing across the keys in perfect harmony. William's eyes met Sarah's across the room, and they shared a knowing smile. Some legacies weren't built in boardrooms but in quiet moments of grace. As they helped William back to his hospital room, he squeezed Ethan's hand. "I need you to promise me something." "Anything, Dad." "When the time comes, don't mourn too long. Celebrate instead. Play music. Share pie. Keep building this beautiful thing we've started." Ethan's voice cracked. "Dad, please?" "Promise me," William insisted. "Promise you'll live the way your mother taught you, with an open heart and generous spirit." "I promise," Ethan whispered. That night, as snow blanketed the city in quiet white, William Thompson fell asleep to the sound of Elizabeth's favorite vinyl, surrounded by love that had grown far beyond the bounds of traditional family. In his dreams, he danced with Elizabeth again, young and strong, while Moon River played in the background. And somehow he knew that everything would be all right, that the symphony he'd helped compose would continue long after his part had ended. The Christmas tree lights twinkled softly, casting gentle shadows across Tommy's latest drawing, a family portrait where every face, whether related by blood or bound by love, shone with the same warm light of belonging. Spring bloomed early the year William Thompson passed away. Cherry blossoms drifted through the air as the nursing home chapel filled with an unusual mix of guests, corporate executives beside delivery drivers, elderly residents next to young therapy patients, all united by one man's legacy. William had slipped away peacefully 2 days before, holding Ethan's hand while Moon River played softly in the background. His last words were, "Listen closely, your mother's playing too." Now, as Ethan stood at the chapel's old piano, his fingers found the keys without hesitation. The wedding march began, but not the traditional version. This was Elizabeth's arrangement, found tucked away in her recipe box with a note for when our boy finds his heart's match. Sarah walked down the aisle in Elizabeth's restored wedding dress, carrying a bouquet of roses from Mrs. Anderson's garden. Tommy preceded her, proudly bearing the rings, while Sarah's mother watched from her walker, tears of joy streaming down her face. The chapel walls were covered with Tommy's artwork scenes of their unconventional family's journey. The centerpiece was a large portrait of William and Elizabeth in their youth, dancing in front of this very same altar. Dad planned everything Ethan had discovered, finding detailed instructions in William's study, right down to the mismatched plates for the reception. Even Catherine Pierce was there, quietly helping Mrs. Anderson arrange Elizabeth's apple pies on those beloved plates. Her own journey of redemption had become part of their story. The ceremony was simple but profound. The elderly chaplain who had married William and Elizabeth 40 years ago spoke of love's power to heal and transform. Some families, he said, are born. Others are built choice by choice, act of kindness by act of kindness. As Ethan and Sarah exchanged vows, a familiar melody drifted through the chapel's open windows, birds singing the same notes as Moon River. Mrs. Anderson swore she saw William and Elizabeth dancing among the cherry blossoms. The reception was held in the newly opened Elizabeth Thompson Center, where the Sarah Mitchell Wing was already changing lives. Children from the music therapy program performed alongside nursing home residents, while Tommy unveiled his latest masterpiece, a mural spanning the entrance hall, depicting their entire extended family story. But the real surprise came after the festivities, when Martha, William's longtime assistant, presented a sealed envelope. "To be opened on your wedding day," the inscription read in William's handwriting. Inside was a letter, along with several documents. "My dearest children, if you're reading this, you've fulfilled my greatest wish, not just finding each other, but finding yourselves. The journey hasn't been easy, but the best symphonies never are. Ethan, you've become the man your mother always knew you could be. Your strength lies not in what you possess, but in what you give. The foundation is your legacy now, not because you're my son, but because you've earned it through humility and hard work. Sarah, you brought healing back to our family when we needed it most. Your father would be proud of the bridges you've built and the lives you've touched. The Mitchell Wing is just the beginning. Together, you'll continue what Elizabeth and I started, the belief that true wealth lies in the lives we touch and the love we share." There's one last surprise. The old Mustang isn't just a car. It's where Elizabeth and I first dreamed of building something meaningful. In its trunk, you'll find the original blueprints for what will become the Thompson Mitchell Children's Hospital. Elizabeth drew them herself, dreaming of a place where healing would be available to all. The funds are in place. The land is secured. All it needs now is your vision to make it real. Remember, play music often, share pie freely, and keep your hearts open to life's unexpected harmonies. All my love. Dad. P.S. Check behind the preserves in your mother's recipe box. She left something for this day too. As Ethan and Sarah drove away in the old Mustang, now decorated with wedding ribbons, they found Elizabeth's own letter written decades ago. To my future daughter-in-law. Welcome to our family's symphony. Take care of my boy's heart. It's bigger than he sometimes remembers. And remember, love is like music. It needs both harmony and discord to grow stronger. With all my love. Elizabeth. P.S. The secret ingredient in the apple pie isn't cinnamon, it's patience. 1 year later, the Thompson-Mitchell Children's Hospital broke ground. Tommy's art therapy program had expanded nationally. Sarah's mother led support groups for accident survivors. The nursing home choir, accompanied by Ethan, performed weekly concerts in the hospital gardens. And in Mrs. Anderson's back room, now officially designated as the family room, a new generation learned Moon River on the old piano. The mismatched plate still came out every Sunday, and Elizabeth's apple pie recipe continued to work its magic. William and Elizabeth's portrait watched over it all, their smiles seeming to grow warmer with each passing year, as the symphony they'd begun continued to play on, gathering new musicians into its ever-expanding orchestra of love. In the gentle twilight of our lives, we discover that legacy isn't measured in bank accounts or business empires, but in the quiet moments we weave into the tapestry of others' lives. Like William and Elizabeth's story reminds us, every piano note played with our grandchildren, every cherished family recipe passed down, every Sunday dinner around a table with mismatched plates, these are the true treasures that time cannot diminish. As we age, we learn that our greatest achievements aren't the deals we closed or the fortunes we built, but the bridges we mended, the hearts we healed, and the love we nurtured even when grief threatened to overwhelm us. Our wrinkles tell stories of laughter shared, our grey hair marks winters weathered together, and our weathered hands still hold the power to guide the next generation home. Remember, dear friends, you haven't just lived a life, you've composed a symphony that will echo through generations, teaching them that true wealth lies not in what we possess, but in what we give away. Like the old Mustang that carried so many dreams, your legacy isn't about the destination but the precious souls you've carried along the way. So let your wisdom flow like Moon River, winding through the lives you touch, knowing that every act of kindness, every shared story, every moment of forgiveness adds another beautiful note to the endless song of family love and healing that transcends time itself. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales of family and redemption. Share with loved ones who need to hear this message, especially those feeling lost or alone. Hit the like button and tell us in the comments below what family tradition means the most to you. Together, let's keep spreading love and healing.